So Split 2 is starting up, and that means that Pickems are back. Now, I will make a group on VLR for all of the different regions, but let's dive in. We'll start here with China, and we'll blitz through China and then go into more depth on some of the other games. So, we got DRG versus Nova. I'm just going to go for DRG, of course. FPX versus Trace, actually two of the better teams here. Obviously, everyone kind of fell in love with FPX. And their playstyle, and I think the FPX probably are head and shoulders maybe at this point above everyone else in China, so I'm going to of course go for FPX just there. Tech versus All Gamers. Tech are RB's team, but they have not been doing so well recently. They lost to JDG earlier on, and AG, I'll go for them. EDG versus Wolves. Now, this is the sad tale of two teams, really, because we all know EDG and the problems that they've kind of had, at least on an international stage, and it's not looking too great for them overall. But my Wolves, oh my goodness, Wolves, very damn so bad. So I'm gonna go EDG there. Tyloo versus Trace. I will go for Trace, and then a resurgent Billy. Of course, Billy are coming back into form, just as FNS is coming back in. Billy now look actually pretty good already. Okay, now let's move to Pacific, where I got 5 of the 6 right. All the Pacific games kind of went as you might expect. I unfortunately picked Bleed to beat Team Secret. Don't worry about it. It didn't happen. This next week, though, we've got Talon versus RRQ. A pretty tough game. This is kind of two teams that, like, maybe will be on the fringe of, like, qualifying for champs, or at least hopefully. What I saw from both these teams, even though RRQ beat DFM, I wasn't really that impressed with overall. Talon, of course, got destroyed by Paper Rex. You might not read into that too much, but I wasn't really that impressed with RRQ overall either. So, a tough one. I think I'm going to lean slightly Talon, because I think over the course of the entirety of what we've seen, they have shown just a little bit more. And I think Governor on Neon with the new Neon could be pretty good. Then we get the game of the week, Paper Rex versus DRX. This will be a great test for where DRX kind of are, I think, overall, because, of course, they won their game last week against Zeta, including a 13-0. Zeta don't look very good. So tough, but I am going to go with Paper Rex, I think, because DRX, even though they're good, I still think Paper Rex will have just a bit too much for them. Global versus Bleed. And this day of Valorant here in Pacific is going to be one of the worst, oh my goodness, days of Valorant we're going to see. Global versus Bleed and DFM versus Zeta on the same day. Oh my god, it's going to be bad. I mean, both of them are really hard to pick. Global, Bleed, or DFM or Zeta. My goodness, this is like genuinely like the hardest game to pick, because where do you even start? I think overall in that first games that they played, then again, it's close. I think Bleed maybe showed a little bit more, but I think that Global over the course of the entire season maybe have been a bit better. I'm gonna go Global, but I don't feel good about it. And then DFM versus Zeta. Look, I'm going to pick Zeta, but I don't feel good about it whatsoever, because DFM have the best player in the server in that game, and that's worrying for Zeta. DRX versus RRQ, we'll just go DRX. And then Team Secret versus T1. Now, even though Team Secret won both their games last week and T1, lost to Gen G, I actually came away pretty impressed with the new T1 with stacks. I think they look pretty good, so I'm actually going to pick T1. Okay, on to our first games here in EMEA of Split 2, and there's some good ones. We got Foot versus Koi to start off with. Not a particularly good one. I think that Foot, should be able to take care of Koi. BBL versus Fnatic, though, this is where it could get a little bit interesting, right? Because Fnatic obviously are without Leo. They're bringing in a new player. I think Hero is their name. And BBL were decent. They were decent for parts of the season earlier on in Split 1. So it's a tough one to really call in terms of what will happen here. I'm actually going to pick BBL. I know that's going to be a shock, but I'm just going to say Fnatic, kind of struggle early on to embed, like the new player and whatever. I'm going to pick BBL as a surprise. Team Heretics versus Na'Vi. Of course, banger game, great game between, you could argue, the two best teams, if you wanted to. Team Heretics have twice already eliminated Na'Vi in single elimination games from qualifying to tournaments, which feels bad. And I do feel like maybe Team Heretics just have Na'Vi's number. Now, obviously, Team Heretics coming off second place in Master Shanghai. They won't have had the time to prepare that Na'Vi have. But I do think that they'll just be in a good form, personally. So I'm going to pick Team Heretics. Team Vitality versus Team Liquid. Really the battle of kind of the mid-table teams here. a safe revenge game against Team Liquid as well. An interesting one, a very interesting one. Vitality, of course, have changed their coach as well, so there's some change here. This one could be tough one to call, but I'm gonna go for Team Vitality. But this is the coin flip. Giants versus Gentle Mates. Look, Gentle Mates, they changed their logo. It's not very good still, so I'm gonna pick Giants. Navi versus Foot, another interesting game. And I mean, Navi, a tough start coming up, right? I mean, Heretics and then Foot. Not very easy for Navi coming out here in this first week. But I will go for Navi here over Foot. And then BBL versus Karmine Core. Karmine Core will have the extra prep time on BBL as well here. This is the game they play this week. And I think Karmine Core, I'm hopeful at least that they will improve and be, back to their best self, hopefully. And so I will pick Karmine Core. And then finally, we have Americas. And Americas, I mean, it's just a mess. The whole thing is a mess. Now, here we go. We got MIBR versus Lev early on. Now, MIBR are apparently having some visa problems. Don't know if that's really been resolved. Rod, the coach, talked about how he might have to play in this game, which obviously you would think not be good for MIBR, but we've seen them win with a coach before, so who knows. Lev, I think most people are on this train of Lev being maybe a bit of a mess. To be honest, I think they could be a bit of a mess, but I think against MIBR playing a bunch of new players, and maybe even their coach, I think that Lev will still win. Then we get the banger game. Okay, Sen versus NRG, right? And this one, I mean, you couldn't create better storyline. But Sentinels, of course, Masters Madrid winners, then they don't even make the playoffs. They kind of struggled early on there in Split 1. You've got NRG, of course, FNS coming back, some coming back. It's an interesting one. And I will just say as well, for those of you who don't know, like all the teams in that group have a tough road, right? Like if you look at like Sen or NRG schedule, right? Like Sen they play NRG, then they play Crew, then they play Cloud9, and then they play G2, right? So there's like not really like an easy, oh yeah, that's a gimme easy win, for any of these teams, because they all play, their group. So it's not gonna be easy for either of them, really. But to start off, Sen versus NRG, Haven's back. Oh man, it's gonna be such a good game, you would have thought. I do think that Sen will probably, they're gonna have more time. They've got the rest. I think that Sen will be pretty good. I think it might take a bit of time still for NRG, to fully figure out what exactly they want to do. And I think Sen will just have probably a bit too much for them. So I will go Sentinels in that one, but what a game. Fury versus 100 Thieves, not so good of a game. Gonna pick 100 Thieves. Loud versus EG. Of course, we've got, I mean, there's so many good things happening in Americas, in terms of storylines. Of course, we've got Loud. Pancada's back with Loud. And, who knows what they'll do. I assume Tui's is playing Duelist as well for Loud now. So we'll see how that goes also. They're playing against EG, of course, who kind of, started off kind of rough. But then as the season kind of progressed, it was like a clear, like, oh, this team's getting better. And if they've continued to improve since then as well, they could be a threat. They could be a real danger. And because of that little thing, I'm kind of feeling EG. I am actually going to pick EG against all odds. This is my kind of big surprise, picking EG there. And then G2 versus Cloud9. Now, of course, G2, they're coming off third place. Because they came third, I don't think they'll be feeling like too down. I think they'll actually be pretty pleased of like, okay, we overachieved there, right? And now if we can build on that, we can do pretty good. And I do think that G2 are the kind of team that, they're going to come back from that experience, having played, against some really good teams and beating some really good teams as well. And I think they're going to come back with a lot of confidence of, we're good, honestly. I know they haven't had a ton of time to prepare, but I think they'll come away from that just feeling like, we can do this. And so I will be picking it. Okay, so those are the picks. You can join the group in the pinned comment as well. Come and join all the groups. Join the Discord as well. Come and play Throw City, our custom 10-man. Why not?